Hare Krishna, welcome back to our Bhakti Yoga Journey series. So we are at the concluding point of the first canto. We started this journey many months ago, and very systematically we have been going through the chapters of the first canto, and now we are here. What seems like the ending of the first canto, but this is the actual beginning of the Bhagavad Puran. We are going to dive into the real essence of the teachings of Bhagavatam, starting from this chapter. So if you remember, in the last chapter, we saw how due to some incidental error, Parikshit Maharaj, in that little fit of rage that he had, he put the dead snake around Shamik Rishi, and the immature child of Shamik Rishi, Shringi, he cursed the king to die in 7 days. And all this was still not known to Parikshit Maharaj, because as soon as he came back to his palace, and when he sat down with a calm head, with a cool and calm, composed head, he realized the kind of mistake that he made. In fact, he said that this was such a heinous and uncivilized act where I offended a Brahmana just because of certain respect which I thought I deserved, right? And this is the sign of, many times when we think of trying to become an aspiring spiritualist, many times we think of a devotee. We usually have this kind of a very binary view of either a pure devotee or somebody who's a pure materialist, right? But actually the whole world lies in this gray zone. And even from the lives of these great personalities, a very important lesson we need to learn here is, it is not whether you commit a mistake or not, but it is what is your response after you commit a mistake that determines your devotional state of consciousness. And that is so beautifully going to be highlighted in this chapter. What was Parikshit's response after having realized that he committed a mistake? Many times we don't even realize the mistake, right? So recognizing the problem is half the problem solved, right? And what is the other half? The beautiful response, the character, the inner metal of Parikshit's devotional character is going to come out in this chapter. So when he realized that, this is such a heinous crime that I had accidentally committed, right? Now, it was not that he was justifying himself. Rather, he said that I must expect some difficulty in the near future, right? Immediately, Parikshit Maharaj, he understood that this is the power of these advanced souls. When you offend an advanced soul, the reactions are going to come very soon. So Parikshit Maharaj understood such a great Brahmana like Shamik Rishi, and that too when he was absorbed in a deep state of trance, I offended him. So definitely some reactions are going to come my way, right? And then he says that I now desire without reservation that the calamity may come now, for in this way I may be freed of the sinful action and not commit such an offense again. Again, a very beautiful, you can spend a whole class on each verse of Bhagavatam. If you just analyze the worldview, the psychological view of Parikshit Maharaj, for most of us, we think when something bad happens to us, we think this is destiny's punishment. But Parikshit Maharaj, he was very clear, when some calamity happens, it is the Lord's correction. Because it is coming from the Lord, anything connected to the absolute truth is absolute. So correction or praise, as long as it is coming from the Lord, is for our spiritual growth. That was the mindset Parikshit Maharaj had. And therefore, when he said that may this calamity come now, so that I'll be freed from this, because I fear negative tendency more than suffering. Because when suffering comes, you suffer just once in your life. But when you are harboring negative tendencies, every minute of your life you are suffering. Right? Usually, we do not want to confront our negativities, right? Because, out of our ego or due to social pressure or whatever, we don't want to confront our anarthas, we don't want to confront our limitations, we don't want to get exposed. Why? Because we think, oh, I will get punished. But we don't realize how much we are punishing ourselves by not opening our heart to devotees. So therefore, this is such a powerful lesson Parikshit is teaching to us, that better to suffer once than to not cleanse your heart and allow this contamination to remain and suffer lifetimes after lifetimes. And therefore, he says that because of this uncivilized and sinful act, because in the Vedic culture, the Supreme Lord, Ishvara, the advanced souls, Brahmanas, and cows, all these three were given utmost respect. And clearly, Parikshit Maharaj here violated one of those principles. And therefore, he said, may my entire kingdom be burnt up. Better, because if you see, material loss is a temporary loss, but spiritual loss is an eternal loss. So for those who are seekers of the eternal truth, their accounting system works at a different level. For us, our accounting system is centered around the temporary. But Parikshit Maharaj is thinking about the welfare of the soul. And therefore he said, even if overcoming that negative tendency within me requires burning up my entire kingdom and riches, may it happen. I don't want to carry forward this negative tendency into my next lifetime. Right? So that was the mindset that Parikshit Maharaj had. And immediately Shamik Rishi came to Parikshit Maharaj in a very apologetic way. He explains what his son had done. And as soon as he heard about this curse, can you imagine? You get a news, somebody comes to you and tells you, hey, you got cursed, you're going to die in 7 days. What would your response be? Immediately, you'll open your bucket list. What are all the things that I always wanted to do? Let me do whatever, as much. Okay, traveling, right? I want to quickly go to Bali and come back. Oh, I want to eat unlimited pizzas. Oh, right? So all your unfulfilled desires, all your favorite movies, you may want to sit and have a marathon movie session, because I'm not going to do it again, right? But Parikshit responds, look what it was. He thought, oh, this is such a good news. He was so happy. Why? Because for him, this curse was his redemption. Right? The redemption of the soul is the greatest act that any human being can perform. Right? Things of this world will come and go, but soul, that's our only wealth. Right? So Parikshit had that vision, and therefore he decided that let me now, because he thanked the Lord, my Lord, I'm so grateful to you. Right? So one is intellectual adjustment. How do you know whether you have intellectually processed a calamity or you have truly processed a calamity? The difference is, when you have truly processed it from your heart, you will experience gratitude. When you intellectually process, after 1 or 2 days, you will still have doubts and insecurities. So, Parikshit, what is the proof that he has truly processed this calamity? Immediately his heart became filled with gratitude, saying, my dear Lord, I'm so grateful to you. Had this curse not come, I would have been attached to my kingdom, my palace. But now, thanks to you, I am, it's like, have you heard the expression peeling off the band-aid? It is such a difficult thing to do. I remember in my childhood, I used to keep falling often, and I used to get so many bruises and scratches. And the worst part was, after the whole thing, at one point, the wound, while it is still not fully healed, it needs some aeration. So my mom used to say that, used to pull out that band-aid. And I used to say, no, you don't pull, I will pull it. And little by little, little by little, little by little. And my brother, I have an older brother, he said, this fellow is not going to peel it off. And he used to come and, in 1 second, he used to pull it. Even though it used to pain, better that 1 second of pain than that 1 hour of time, multiple pains that I would, go through. So this is how Parikshit Maharaj, he thought, my lord, you have peeled the band-aid in 1 second, right? And so he realizes that, and he sits down, goes to the banks of Ganges, right? And now he decides that this is it. Now I need to absorb my mind in Krishna. Because if the whole life is a preparation, death is a real examination. An examination of how intensely can I remember, how intensely can I absorb my mind in thoughts of the Lord? How intensely can I absorb my consciousness in Krishna? Right? That's why Prabhupada, he called this institution as International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Because ultimately, the only thing we are working on, it's not how expert Mridanga player I have become, how expert I have become at, doing puja, how expert I have become in all the different external activities. It's all about my consciousness, how expert I have become in tuning my consciousness. So he understood that now and he was so fortunate. At least he got to know, when his exam date is. Most people, they don't even know when that final moment is going to come. So he had 7 days to prepare his consciousness, right? And so what he does, he decides to go sit at the bank of Ganges. There's a place still present today. It is literally midway between modern day Delhi and Rishikesh. So if you're traveling from Delhi to Rishikesh, you have to take a small detour, and that place called as Shukratal comes there. And still today, the water body is there. There's a beautiful, that original tree under which Shukadeva Goswami spoke Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj is still there. There's a beautiful temple of Shukadeva Goswami and Parikshit, and so many great sages who had assembled there. So there's like a whole virtual scene of that Bhagavat Katha is still there. And the tree is gigantic. I mean, you'll not believe it. Maybe if you can Google for this place, Shukratal, and it's a gigantic tree. I mean, I can't even describe to you. Maybe the length, the branches, the tree span itself runs into maybe even 50 meters or something. That's how wide. Can you imagine, like 100 meters race, 100 meters dash that Olympians have, right? So that's the that's the length of it's quite a big tree, right? So yeah, so and then so then this he says that now that he decides that I'm going to sit here until death, right? And at that time, all the great sages. Now imagine Parikshit. Who's Parikshit? Parikshit is known as Vishnu Rata, one who's personally protected by the Lord. And now the news of Parikshit's death has gone to, or it's like a flash news, right? Even though they didn't have Instagram and WhatsApp, people had the power of telepathy. They could understand what is happening, and such a important, significant event is happening because just like how the birth of a great soul is glorious, the death of a great soul is also going to be equally glorious. And so Parikshit Maharaj, his death, this news spread all over, and all the great sages, under the excuse that we are going on a pilgrimage, but they knew something spectacular is going to happen. It's not going to be an ordinary event. It's ultimately, he's a descendant of the great Pandavas. From his childhood, he's been blessed by, protected and blessed by Lord Krishna. Something extraordinary is going to happen. So great sages like Atri, Chavana, Shardavan, Arishnemi, Bhrugu, Vashishta, Parashara, Vishwamitra, Angira, Parshurama, all the who and who's that we know, all the great rishis we know of in the Vedic fold, right? Vyasa himself, Narada, Maitreya, Gautama, Bharadwaja, all this Devala, Asita, all of them, they came together and Prabhupada, if you read that purport, Prabhupada gives a brief description of each of these great sages who in themselves are so glorious, right? And then all of them assembled there, and Parishit Maharaj, he very warmly, humbly welcomes all of them by bowing down, right? Even though he was the great emperor, right? But he bows down and look at his humility even at that final moment. Can you imagine Parikshit Maharaj? What was the whole reason for his calamity? One immature Brahmana boy cursed him. And what is his response? He is taking shelter of all the other Brahmanas. Right? He did not go on a genocide. Oh, these Brahmanas have to be eliminated from my kingdom. Right? And it's very natural, to have that kind of a tendency, especially when somebody is in that materialistic mindset. They will have this kind of a tendency where when you see, we tend to identify the source of our offense with something like a big community or a country or sometimes an institution, right? And consequently, once you are burnt by that, you will continue to harbor that enmity towards that group. But look at this, truly shows this disposition of Parikshit Maharaj, that he humbly bowed down. And look what he's going to say now. He's going to say that, oh, you wise, renounced people, for you, kings and administrators are like us. We are like a place of refuge. When you go to toilet, it's not that you want to sit there all day. You just finish your business and go. Right? Literally, Parikshit Maharaj is saying, the royalty, all this people like us, we are literally like toilet for all of you. Right? You only deal with us just as needed. Can you imagine? This is coming purely from his heart. This humility is coming from his heart. That shows he did not keep that grudge against Shringi or Shamik Rishi within his heart, right? And he submits to all of them and says that, oh, the supreme law. And look, somebody else could say, oh, why did you not retaliate? You are ultimately the great descendant of Pandavas. You are known as one who's protected by Lord Vishnu, by Krishna, right? And your name itself, since childhood, you've been searching for Krishna. You have been examining and looking for Krishna. That's why his name became Parikshit. One who does parikshan. Parikshan means examination. So because Parikshit, as a young boy, he saw Krishna inside his mother's womb. As soon as he was born, he was eagerly searching. Where is this person? Where is this person? I want to look. So everybody he would go, he would pull them and see their face. Is this the person? Is this the person? Because he was constantly examining, his name became Parikshit. And such a exalted person, he could have countered the curse. Or he could have, pulled his higher strings and negated the curse. But he didn't do all of that. Rather, look at his response. He's not even blaming Shringi, but he's saying, this is Lord's blessings upon me, that he decided to embrace me in the form of this Brahmana's curse. Look at the glorious character of Parikshit. When calamities come, he is looking at it as not as punishment, but sometimes a lover embraces the beloved little tightly. So the beloved enjoys the tight embrace. It will not say, oh, why are you crushing me? Right? So why? Because there's an exchange of love. In the tight embrace, the beloved is experiencing the love of the lover. This is the mood of a devotee. When the Lord creates some kind of an apparent disturbance, a calamity in their life, the devotee looks at it as, oh, my Lord is very tightly embracing me. That's all. He wants me to be very close to him. Why? Because when calamities come, we go close to Krishna. He knows this is the only time we remember him intensely. So to bring us close to him, he adds little calamity. So that is his way of pulling us towards him. And he says, because I'm too attached, not that he was, but out of his humility is expressing that because I'm too attached to my family, the Lord, in order to save me, he made sure that I detach myself from this world. And therefore he says, I have come here at the banks of Ganges, and I only desire to sing and hear the glories of the Lord. And he says, very powerful, again, his mindset. He says this, that please pray. He's taking blessings from all the Brahmanas assembled there, saying that if I have to take another birth again, please bless me for these 3 benedictions. Number 1, may I have complete attachment to Lord Krishna. 2, may I have constant association with his devotees. And 3, may I have friendly relationship with all living beings. This is a very, very deep statement, because in our life we have 3 levels of connections: higher, equal, and lower. A devotee works at all these 3 levels because one understands connection to Krishna means connection to Krishna and everything and everyone connected to Krishna. That is a real sambandha or relationship we are trying to develop. So he says that may I have attachment to Lord Krishna. So my vertical connection, my higher connection may be strong. But sometimes people will say, oh, it's just me and the Lord, my Ekanta Bhajan, me and God, that's it. I don't want to deal with anybody else. No. Prabhupada many times he would say, when he went to America, he saw one very interesting thing, that in America, people love their pets. So, there's an expression, love me, love my dog. So Prabhupada picked up that expression. He would say, see, if you want to love Krishna, you have to love Krishna's dogs, who are his devotees. Right? So he would say, that's why the second aspect he prays for, may I have continuous association with the devotees of the Lord. And at the same time, not that, oh, Lord and devotees and Haribo, let me just do kirtan with them, all of them, and be happy all the time. No. May I also have friendly relationship with all the living beings. Why? Because if I cannot empathize, usually what prevents empathy, lack of friendliness, envy, blocks the empathy within our heart. So Parikshit Maharaj is saying that may I develop also empathy towards the suffering souls, towards all the living beings, so that I can have, nice friendly dealings with them. To whatever way I can serve them, to my capacity, I can serve them. So these 3 things he asks, right? And then he says, saying this, he enters into the deep state of internal control, sits down, and facing the north. Facing the north is a very significant thing, because north is a direction of Himalayas, the direction of spirituality, the direction of spiritual elevation, right? He sits there facing the north, and just as he sat down, the celestial drums and flowers started showering. And just as at that point, all the sages, sadhus, it's an expression saying, very good, all glories, right? So they start glorifying Parikshit Maharaj. He said that, oh, what you are doing is absolutely not astonishing, and they are actually glorifying to set the record correct. If somebody heard that, they would say, oh, Parikshit was really attached to his family and wealth, and that's why Lord cursed him. He says, no, actually, because you are strictly coming in the line of Krishna and his devotees, it is not, extraordinary what you are doing. It shows the kind of a devotional heart that you have, right? And therefore, we all shall wait here until this foremost devotee of Lord, Maharaj Parikshit, will return back to his supreme planet, to the higher loka, to the spiritual world, right? So they all decide to accompany, and this is also a very important point, that it's good to, help our friends and devotees and family members when in need. But one of the greatest help you can do to them is enabling them to remember the Lord at the time of death. This is the greatest service we can do to our friends and family members, because that final journey while alive, we have company around us. Even if we don't have any company, we have support of our own senses and body and mind. But the time of death, the soul becomes so helpless. It is literally alone. Not even its body and mind are going to accompany it. Of course, the subtle body is there, but it's not fully active that way. So the best service we can do is, at the time of death, sing kirtan, chant the holy names, recite Bhagavad Puran, recite shlokas from Gita and Bhagavatam to fix the consciousness of that person on the higher truth, right? So, and this is something across the Vedic culture you will see, even not just at the time of death, sometimes even after death also. It's a very common practice in India that they sit and recite Gita or Bhagavatam and some holy scriptures. They like to sit and recite because the soul does get benefit of that, right? I remember, I was very close to my maternal grandpa, and when he passed away, so somehow, I fortunately I happened to be in my home city that time, and I got to know the news, and immediately next morning he passed away, like in early hours, and I went to my grandpa's place, and somehow I was suddenly I was just drawn to somehow serve him, and so I just sat down next to him, and I just sat down next to him and started chanting. And one of the best and the most intense japa sessions I ever had in my life was at that moment, because I had a purpose to chant. Right? Usually because we lack purpose, the quality of our japa is also very little diluted. So I really had, and literally I was like rock steady for almost around 5 to 6 hours. I was just sitting there and just chanting. I didn't even realize people were coming and going. My family members were coming and going. I could sense something was happening, but I was in such a deep, absorbed state. And I felt so grateful for that opportunity. And after the whole thing, my grandma, she came and said, she hugged me and said, "You have sent, your grandpa to Vaikuntha." You know, so so like that. So it was very nice. My grandma's blessings also I got that way. So yeah, basically the point is that this is a an excellent service you can do at the time of the greatest need of the soul. So like that. So all the sages, they they glorify Parikshit Maharaj, right? And then he says that he asks a very pertinent question at this point. He says, "Oh Maharaj, oh great sages, please tell me, what is my immediate duty? What is it that I should do right now? I know I have only 7 days to live. What is it that I should do?" And he says, specifically, what is the duty of somebody who's about to die? So in general, what are the duty of people? And second question, what is specific duty of a person who's about to die? Right? These two questions he asks. And then, now imagine this assembly. If you remember the names I read, for example, we heard names like Gautama, who's an expert in the Nyaya philosophy. We heard names like, Vyasa, who's an expert in the Vedanta philosophy. Narada, who's an expert in Bhakti philosophy. So if you see, the sages who assembled there, though they were all under the broad Vedic fold, each one had their own path. And in a sense, this question of Parikshit Maharaj is a very relevant question, because now Parikshit is using this as an opportunity to have a conclusive understanding of what is the core essential teachings of the Vedas. Can you imagine? Even in his death, he was teaching a lesson to everybody that, hey, those who have read the Vedas, there's always a confusion. What should I do? Is karma the highest path? Is jnana the highest path? Is dhyana the highest path? Or is bhakti the highest path? Or even in that, there are different variations, right? What is it that is the conclusion of the Vedas? So all the Vedic experts are right here. So let me throw an open question to all of them. Because if one person answers something, if the other person doesn't agree, immediately he's going to counter back and say, no, but according to this Upanishad, he'll quote, So he used this as an opportunity to glorify the Vedic conclusion. He knew what the conclusion is, right? So when he asked this question, all the people, they were scratching their head. Different people were giving different answers, right? And then finally, a great personality enters the stage. So why there was a though these are like in between the lines in other Puranas, this in between the lines conversation is described, where Gautama was presenting something from Nyaya, then all the different schools of philosophies, they were all quoting their own philosophies, right? But then Sukadeva Goswami, as soon as he entered the scene, everybody became quiet. And he is the real hero of the Bhagavatam. Yes, we know Parikshit Maharaj is one definite hero, but the real hero is actually Sukadeva Goswami, because as soon as he entered that scene of all the sages, everybody became quiet. And you may be wondering why. Because Sukadeva Goswami, after all, is a 16-year-old boy. Everybody else is like, sages with long beards and, gray hair, right? But yet, there was something so special about Sukadeva Goswami. As soon as he entered the scene, he had this bluish complexion like Lord Krishna, and he had a effulgent aura around him. And, and just by his physical presence, people knew that this person does not belong to this world. In his consciousness, he's in a different level. All the sages unanimously understood that this person is not an ordinary person. And so they invite him to come and sit on the stage and answer this question of Parikshit Maharaj personally. And Bhagavatam also describes beautifully that how it didn't look like he belonged to any social order, because Vyasa was a grihastha, Narada was a sannyasi. There were so many other young brahmacharis also were there. Some vanaprasthas were also there. But Sukadeva Goswami, he looked like he's beyond all varnas and ashramas. And yet, he was like, sometimes the fire gets covered by smoke, so you don't see the presence of fire. So the ordinary people could not identify him, because he was almost like, externally, he was almost like a madman, dressed just in 4 directions. And some children were making fun of him. Sometimes when some avadhut kind of a person, some transcendental person is walking on the street, almost looking like like a madman, children like to throw stones and, make fun of them, throw some things on them, right? But as soon as Parikshit entered the assembly, all the people who were making fun of him, they stopped. They understood, oh my God, this is some extraordinary person that we were dealing with. So they all backed off. And then the physiognomy of Sukadeva Goswami is described, that how his hands, legs, thighs, arms, shoulders, foreheads, and all the other parts of his body were delicately formed. His eyes were wide and beautiful. His nose and ears were raised. He had an attractive face. His neck was well formed and was beautiful like a conch shell. His collarbone was fleshy. His chest was broad and thick, his navel deep, and his abdomen beautifully striped. His arms were long, his hair was curly, and it was strewn all over his beautiful face. He was externally naked, and the hue of his body reflected like that of Lord Krishna. He was blackish and very beautiful due to his youth. And he was, he was very attractive. Because of the glamour of his body and his attractive smiles, he was pleasing to women. And yet, it is elsewhere, earlier on it was described at how when Sukadeva Goswami, as soon as he was born, immediately, his mother had to carry him in her womb for 16 years. Now, this is extraordinary. How she managed to do it is it even humanly possible? Definitely, she had to be a mystic to have such kind of a extended pregnancy. Why? Because Sukadeva Goswami, when he was in his mother's womb, he knew that if I come outside, it is Maya. Therefore, he decides that let me stay here. What's the point of coming out into this world of Maya? So then Vyasa goes to Dwaraka, calls Krishna and says, Krishna, if you give assurance to him, then he will listen to you. So then Krishna comes and personally gives assurance that don't worry, my Maya will never touch you. Then immediately Sukadeva Goswami, he was born, and as soon as he was born, he just walks out of his house. No, usually traditionally when the child is born, there's so many samskaras, Jata samskara, Upanayana samskara, Aksharabhyasa samskara, so many samskaras for education and name giving ceremony, all these things are done. But nothing. He didn't need any purificatory rites. No rituals were needed for him to purify him. He was already born in transcendence, and he just walked out of his house and started moving out. As a 16-year-old young boy, just dressed in just 4 directions. And as he walked past some, there were these open bathing ghats, and some women were there in that bathing ghats. They didn't even bother to cover themselves. And chasing his son, the elderly old Vyasa was coming, and as soon as they saw Vyasa, these ladies, they became, conscious, and they started covering themselves. Then Vyasa asked him a question. Hey, when my 16-year-old attractive boy was walking past, you didn't even bother to cover yourselves. Now when I come, how is it that you became so conscious? He said that, your son, even though his body belongs to his world, in his eyes we could see that he was in a completely different realm. He did not belong to this world. Right? So we didn't even feel the need that, there was a third person around us. Right? So that was how absorbed Sukadeva Goswami was. Right? And that Shuka, when he walked in to that assembly, everybody applauded him, surrounded him, welcomed him. And it is said that suddenly when Sukadeva Goswami entered into that scene, all the great stalwarts, they just faded away. Just like how in the night sky, there is one big moon, and all the stars, they just start twinkling to whatever their best of the capacity. Like that, Sukadeva Goswami entered that scene. It looked like there's this beautiful bright moon, and all the other sages, they just faded away in the backdrop like night stars. And then immediately Parikshit Maharaj, he bowed down to him and glorifies him and says, oh, your glory is so far and wide. It is spread so far and wide. How fortunate we are that you have yadrichaya, just by your own causeless will, you have appeared here. Nobody invited him, nobody sent him a WhatsApp message saying, okay, come to the banks of Ganges in Shukratal. Right? He just came there, and he says that we know how glorious you are. Because he was in a renounced order of life, he used to just live off begging of food. And he said that Sukadeva Goswami, he would stay just enough time outside a house as it would take to milk a cow. The expression, basically what it means is that he would not get allured by, oh, how many floors this building has? What is the area of this house? What all facilities, how many air conditioners do they have in this house? Let me go check it out. Right? He was completely detached, just doing the needful to maintain the body and soul together. Right? And he says that we are so fortunate to receive such a presence of such a great saint and such a great mystic among us. Right? Indeed, because I can see Lord Krishna's mercy is upon me, therefore, he has sent, as Paramatma, he has inspired you to come here. Right? And then he again asked this question that about what is this duty of mine and what is the duty of a person who's about to die, like that. And so after explaining this, after humbly appealing this, Sukadeva Goswami, he starts giving reply to Parikshit's question, which is literally the whole Bhagavatam. So basically, what is it that a person has to do always is absorb their mind in Krishna and hear Harikatha. So that Harikatha is what this entire Bhagavatam is. So the specific answer we are going to see in the beginning of the next canto, in the beginning of the next chapter. But there is something more I wanted to share today, because the Bhadra Purnima is coming. It is the day of Bhagavatam's appearance. It is celebrated as the day of Bhagavatam's appearance. And there is something so special about Bhagavatam that sets it apart from all the other Vedic literature. You see, the essence of all the Vedic teachings, if you summarize them, there are these three words: karma, rightful actions; dharma, the universal laws; and prema, the ultimate love of God. And even among them, that karma and dharma are driven by prema. So that, as Bhagavatam itself, in the second chapter itself, we saw in the first canto, what was that highest dharma? What is the highest religion? Bhagavatam says that religion which invokes within us that unalloyed, uninterrupted love for the Supreme Lord, the love of God, this is the highest essence of all religion. And when that love of God comes, what is love? It's action, it's service. So when a devotee is completely absorbed in that love for Krishna, when they become Krishnamayi, means, like we are Annamayi or Jnanamayi or, Pranamayi. But such an advanced devotee is Krishnamayi. For them, the only thing that they see is service for Krishna. And the epitome of that Krishna consciousness, Krishnamayi, is Srimati Radharani. And because if you see, the only thing that is in her mind is always about serving Krishna. Devi Krishnamayi Prokta. There's a verse that glorifies her, that she is Krishnamayi. That one who always sees Krishna in everything and feels and is never separated from Krishna. Such a person, the epitome of that is Srimati Radharani. And that love of Srimati Radharani has been witnessed only by some very, very few rare souls. The very, very intimate love of Radharani, the intimate service that she offers to Krishna, is something that is witnessed by very, very few rare souls. One such rare soul is the personal parrot of Srimati Radharani, whose spiritual name is Shuka. In fact, it is in Gopal Champu, one literature, it is described that Radharani should personally feed pomegranate seeds to Shuka, the parrot. And this parrot would regularly go and see what Krishna needs. In fact, they said that Radharani, she knows what Krishna's need is even before Krishna realizes the need. That is how absorbed she is in Krishna's service. And that personal parrot, Shuka, witnessed so many intimate pastimes of Radha and Krishna and is completely absorbed in that mood of Radharani's love for Krishna. And when Radha Krishna decided to end their pastimes on this planet Earth, Radharani instructs this bird, Shuka, that spread these glories of devotion to Krishna. That is your service. And now they all went back to Goloka. Poor this one parrot Shuka was left. It was thinking, how do I do that? Right? I need proper words to express this love that about the service to Krishna, this love for Krishna. So wandering like that, this parrot one day goes to Kailash, because in separation from Krishna, this parrot was searching, where are these pure devotees of Krishna? Where is Harikatha happening? And in Mount Kailash, Lord Shiva is always doing Harikatha. So one day, Parvati, she asks about, explain the glories of Lord Krishna. So Lord Shiva says, oh, you have asked a question which is very dear to my heart. But, I will go into ecstasy talking about Krishna. I will just go in a state of samadhi. I'll be speaking about Krishna's glories. Please prompt in between. Just keep saying, say, make some sound to just remind me that you are there around me. So then Parvati Devi, she says, okay, definitely. Right. And then Lord Shiva, he starts beautiful Krishna Katha. And as soon as the Krishna Katha is heard, this bird Shuka, he goes and hides in one of the trees and is relishing this Harikatha. And then suddenly at one point, it was a long class by Lord Shiva. And Mother Parvati, she was tired that day. So she started yawning and, she kind of dozed off. But this bird Shuka was relishing that class so much. But it saw that, oh, if Parvati Devi, she is not acknowledging, Lord Shiva will stop this flow of nectar. So I have to do something. So this parrots are good at impersonating voices. So this parrot impersonates the voice of Mother Parvati and starts saying, And then Lord Shiva in his samadhi, he keeps narrating this Harikatha. And finally, the whole class is over. He opens his eyes. And then Mother Parvati also, she apologizes, sorry, I dozed off in between. He says, what? You dozed off? I heard your prompts in between. He says, no, I dozed off. I'm sorry. I thought I disturbed your flow of the class. Oh, then clearly there is somebody else here. Immediately Lord Shiva picks up his Trishul, his trident, and releases that weapon. And, and his weapon starts chasing this parrot. Now this parrot starts escaping Shuka. And he goes all the way from Kailash. Badrinath is very close by. So he goes to Badrinath. And there is Vyasa sitting there. And his wife is sitting there. And he enters into the womb of Vyasa's wife. And that is how this transcendental parrot, the personal parrot of Srimati Radharani, who has witnessed the most esoteric love of Radha and Krishna, who has experienced what the highest epitome of Krishna consciousness is, what it means to be fully conscious of Krishna, that parrot Shuka became Shukadev Goswami. And therefore, when Shukadev Goswami is reciting Bhagavatam, he is expressing that love that Radharani has for Krishna. Every verse of Bhagavatam, every word of Bhagavatam, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he goes one level higher. Every syllable of Bhagavatam is glorification of Srimati Radharani's love for Krishna. If the Jiva wants to understand and experience what love for Krishna is, there is no other scripture than Srimad Bhagavatam. And that is why great sages, great spiritualists, great transcendentalists, they absorb their mind in Bhagavad Katha, in the stories of Bhagavatam, in the narrations of Bhagavatam. And that's what you will see. You will see, even though Sukadeva Goswami is that Braj Bhakta, he is a Brajvasi at heart, but if you look at his philosophical presentation, starting from next chapter, he is going to talk about karma. He is going to talk about the deepest states of jnana. He is going to talk about the practice of Ashtanga yoga. He is going to give a whole systematic summary of the Vedic philosophy and establish the position of pure devotional service. What is the context? What is the position of pure devotional service of Bhakti Yoga? He is going to establish it. And that's what makes this presentation of Bhagavatam so special, right? Because Sukadeva Goswami, he is going to address every thinker, every scholar in the audience and speak their language. It's like a interdisciplinary, interfaith, inter-sampradaya, inter-philosophical discussion that is going to happen now. And Sukadeva Goswami is going to very beautifully establish the understanding of the absolute truth and the glories of pure devotional service as he starts narrating the Bhagavatam. So with this, he ends his discussion of the the first canto ends here, and starting from second canto, first chapter, we are going to see what is the answer that Sukadeva Goswami is going to give specifically to these two questions of Parikshit about what is the duty of people in general and what is the specific duty of a person who's about to die. And then Parikshit is going to ask further questions, and that's where the entire Bhagavatam is going to unfold. All right. Let's end our discussion here, and let's open the forum for any quick questions or comments. I saw a hand was raised earlier on. I thought I will address that question after the class. If you'd like to ask the question again, please do. Yes, Apurva, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. I wanted to ask, like we also hear the first time when Shukdev Goswami, he was just born, he started following impersonalism and that whole pastime. So is it a pastime to glorify Bhakti Yoga, like because he has been in the association of Srimati Radharani, like then why it's elaborate?
Yeah, see the Vedic literature, they present truth at different layers, and one needs to understand that Sukadeva Goswami is also a role model renunciate for those who want to follow the path of detachment, and typically those who are in the path of detachment, the Brahmavad, the Brahma Nirvana is the highest goal. So he sets a good example even from that point of view. And for the devotees, Sukadeva Goswami is somebody who has perfected an anga of bhakti, which is kirtanam, which is glorifying the Lord. Parikshit as Shravanam, as hearing, he glorified the limb of devotional service of hearing, and Sukadeva Goswami perfected his life through the devotional limb of, right? And that's why, so Sukadeva Goswami also, if you see, he is a Jnani par excellence. If you look at the knowledge that he presents, the technical details, I mean, just go through the 5th canto Vedic cosmology, the kind of details that he presents, even some Jnanis in the audience also could not know that. So that way, he is a role model at different levels, and therefore the Vedic literature present the understanding at these different layers. So specifically, this understanding of him as a pet parrot of Radharani is a very esoteric and a very deep devotional understanding. Yeah. I see a question in the chat box. We would like to know when I can start learning the Mahatmya of Radharani. Now, at this very moment, as I said, every verse of Bhagavatam is glorification of Srimati Radharani. Right? If you really want to understand Srimati Radharani, you have to understand what is that Krishna consciousness, what is that love for the absolute truth, what is love for Krishna. So the entire Bhagavatam is actually a description of Srimati Radharani's heart. So just keep listening to the classes, and this is where we will understand it more in depth. All right. Okay, if there are no further questions, let's end our discussion here. Thank you all so much for joining us today. So see you next week when we will begin a brand new canto. We'll start with the 2nd canto. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you so much for this session.